Alright, this time we're going to play the Austerlitz variation of Brandywine. What I mean by that is, like Austerlitz, where Napoleon can decide whether or not to bring on his whole force or just part of his force, and in his victories conditions change. In this case, the British can either come in on the flanks, like they did historically, or if both commands try to come in and force way across the river, all they need to do is establish a bridgehead, here or here. A bridgehead is defined as an area clear of any colonial units within command range of one of these major crossings. In this variation, the colonists can set up anywhere on the map, 1/3 of a foot move away from the edge. Niflheim enters. The forward British elements run into American skirmishers. The skirmishers hold up the colonial advance and fade away. Late morning. Sullivan moves some forces up closer to the bank of the Brandywine. General Greene does the same. Niflheim edges his troops forward. Niflheim's troops open up the assault, and Cornwallis's troops come up the road. The game is afoot at Chad's Ford. The British suffer losses and fail to cross the Brandywine. It's mid-afternoon, and Knox's artillery opens up on the British at Chad's Ford, inflicting minimal damage. Niflheim pulls his exhausted troops back. It's late afternoon, and the British are ready to make their assault. Knox's artillery opens up on Abercrombie's light as they cross Chad's Ford, driving them back. Niflheim's artillery opens up across Britain's Ford. The militia along the ford run off. There's one combat across Chad's Ford. It's bloody fighting, with neither side wanting to give up, give in, or give any ground. Niflheim unpacks bags. Cornwallis renews the assault. Niflheim's artillery opens up on the colonial line, driving them back as well. Ferguson's Highlanders storm across. Abercrombie's light troops push across at Pyle's Ford. The Virginians are driven back. The British Household Guard, under Matthews, drives hard into manned Anthony Wayne's division. Knox's artillery fires into the assaulting British, driving them back. Washington flanks Ferguson's men. The Scots fall back, and it's early evening. Cornwallis redoubles his efforts. Washington asks for Sterling's help, staunching the hole at Britain's Ford. The Highlanders fall back across Britain's Ford, and Niflheim's artillery opens up on the Colonials, driving them back. The Highlanders recross the Brandywine, just in time for Maxwell's light to come crushing into their side. Again, Knox's artillery hits the flank of the advancing British. The Grenadiers are raked horribly. Early in the evening, the desperate fighting continues. The outflanked Highlanders. They stop the Colonials, but at a horrible cost. And the Grenadiers continue to push across at Chad's Ford. The British seem to have captured and established some sort of presence across Chad's Ford. But can they hold it? Late in the evening, there's one last effort. Knox's artillery fires one more time. The British fall back from Chad's Ford, but they don't cross back across Chad's Ford, they simply move downstream. And Pulaski's dragoons are at Chad's Ford. Niflheim sends troops across Pyle's Ford and attacks the cavalry from the flank. His artillery fires on the Colonials across Britain's Ford, falling heavy on Maxwell's light. And in a surprise move, he crosses and attempts to establish a bridgehead at Jones's Ford. Howe realizes he will not be able to create a bridgehead at Chad's Ford before nightfall. He holds his position, so he doesn't incur any more losses. Green, however, thinks losses sound like a pretty good idea. He hits the British in the flank, and Sullivan drives on the Hessians at Jones Ford, and the British just coming across. This is not actually a legal flank attack because of their proximity to the river. So we place the colonies opposite the British in a normal combat. And let us resolve all these combats from the last turn. Starting here, the British choose the order of the attacks. They'll resolve this one first. Maybe they can cause a retreat that will end in elimination. They do, but it's a dual elimination. The flank attack. The colonials are driven back, but at a horrible cost. And now the final attack. It's inconclusive. In this instant, the British have suffered 6 block losses, the colonials 3. 6 is the British morale. The army has been broken. It's a decisive American victory. Hey, I forgot, there's this one over here. Look at this, my friends. There are no American blocks within command range of Jones Ford. That's all the British had to do for victory. Now they did lose half, which means that the game ends this turn, which it does anyway because this is the last turn. So just like the historical battle, there might be some concern over, or some contention over who won and who lost. They established a bridgehead over the river, but they broke their army in doing so. I'd still consider this an American victory because the British army was broken. Boy, if they had just not lost one unit, they'd still be valuable and they would have a decisive victory. The one unit is the only thing that made the difference here. I was testing to find out, even with the British all-in attack, is there a chance the Americans, if that was a sure victory every time for the British, then this would not be a viable option. I wouldn't consider this variant successful. But the Americans broke the British army. I assumed it would be desperate fighting over one of these two. Good game.